Good morning, Nishant, says Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Audible on YouTube. Alright, thank you. We're already very late, so we'll be very quick. Bum bum bum, bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We are working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! But before we go, we gotta follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like some hot water with black pepper in it. And here we go. My God, beautiful. Let's do it again. Nice. Healing. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you're not alone. It says that we are in this together. That's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, we'll begin. But before we begin, I'd like to ask you, what do you have for the beverage during the simultaneous sip? What's your beverage? Mine is hot water, of course, with black pepper. But what do you take? I never asked you. Would love to know. With that, India's first made chip module sent to US from AOS. Hot water, says Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Well, hot water. It's very nice. Feels good. So India's first chip module sent to US from AOS. This was a part of ISM 1.0, India Semiconductor Mission 1.0. This was from Sanand's plant, Kane Semiconductor Outsourced Semiconductor Assembly and Test, OSAT facility in Sanand, delivered to Alpha and Omega Semiconductor, AOS. 900 Intelligent Power Modules, IPMs, transferred. This company essentially came out with ISM's support of 1,500 crores, 1,653 crores from the center. It's basically a bipolar transistor, insulated gate bipolar transistor, IGBT. Does some high-tech stuff. Corresponding drive and protection circuits into a single compact package to simplify motor control. So it's going on. A lot of work is going on in the semiconductor play, of course. We've discussed a lot about this. Semiconductor 1.0 that mobilized some $18 billion, right? Semiconductor 2.0 is trying to quadruple it, if I'm not wrong. So a lot of money going into semiconductors in India. Kane's output capacity to agreement to ship 10 million chips annually to AOS. Right? Pilot production started in April 2025 and pilot is done already. That means within just 6 months, this particular facility has been able to roll out. The total investment in this facility was about 3,000 crores, right? Company has currently committed 400 crores worth of this. So this is obviously great news. Speaking of great news, folks, I went to the market yesterday. It was bustling, right? So it's one of the things that you can check when you go to the market, how deep is the sentiment, how green is the sentiment, right? And that's not just an anecdotal thing. Despite just 9 days of GST implementation rationalization, Indian automotive sales have cracked the highest ever sales in September, and the momentum is getting sustained even now, right? So it's not just Maruti. We discussed yesterday Maruti. Every company is reporting some surge in traffic, some surge in bookings. All over, the sentiment is pretty green as far as the automotive play is considered. And because of that, maybe because of that, causation correlation could be an issue in this analysis. But Hyundai has announced some $5 billion in capex in India. So what did we talk about as the two biggest problems with India? One was, of course, private consumption, and one was, domestic consumption, and the other was private capex. And both of them are related, right? Private capex depends on domestic consumption. Domestic consumption, in a way, depends on private capex. Private capex leads to more jobs, more factories. More jobs lead to more spending power in people. More spending power leads to more domestic consumption. More domestic consumption encourages companies to invest more, to sell more, and so on and so on and so on. So Hyundai is looking at $5 billion worth of investments in the country, which should be great news, which is great news. This is the kind of stuff that we want to happen in every industry, right? Whether it be electronics and communication, ECMS is obviously a scheme that's running, whether it be smartphones through PLI, whether it be semiconductors through DLI, whether it be anything, right? Auto companies and so on and so forth. We need this. We need this. And this is finally happening, which is great news. RBI is also talking about 7% growth in the next quarter. It's projecting that growth, which is great news. It says the tariff impact will decide what's going to happen. Otherwise, the GST, everything seems to be solid. There is a Europe-based fund which holds $1 trillion in assets. It says we are not looking at investing in India right now because equities are expensive, and most of the action which is happening in the IPO market, the primary market, not so much in the secondary market. So we are going to be looking at corporate reports, earnings, and maybe see what happens in the equities play. Maybe the macros should tick, maybe the tariff should subside, and so on and so forth. But overall, the sentiment is pretty positive for Indian markets in general, not the stock markets, but Indian domestic consumption markets. Mr. Abhishek Sharma writes, there are a lot of activities going on in semiconductor. Which stocks do you think that could benefit from it? Well, that's a very interesting question. But I don't think those stocks are listed. Those companies are listed. So Tata is obviously a play, right? They have a facility in Dholera, one facility in Sanand, right? Is it Sanand? No, Dholera and Assam. Sorry, Dholera and Assam. So Tata, but no entity is listed there, related entity. There could be some SMEs or some small caps or mid caps which are directly or indirectly related to this revolution which is happening, but not that I can see right now. If you look at second order effects, a lot of housing market is bustling, especially the tier 2 play, right? And even the affordable and semi-premium and mid-market housing, that's going up. There is a recent report saying that housing, after months of decline or months of stabilization, is looking at a growth pace again, even in the tier 2 markets. So that's a second order effect of the semiconductor revolution. Housing is like a direct semiconductor which can be seen, but I don't see a listed company which you could bet on, which I hope you could have. It would have been a sure bet, essentially. It would have been a dead sure bet, but nothing is clearly visible right now in the market. Some active traders might be looking at that, but no, I don't think there's any listed company, at least directly related to what's happening in the semiconductor play. However, we can always read and we can always research. So if any viewer of Thinkers Frequency finds it out, do share with everybody. So we'll discuss that as a prediction, right? As a way of looking into the future. Keynes. Is Keynes listed? Mr. Sumant Kumar says Keynes. I don't know when Keynes is listed. In India? I don't think so. Keynes share price. It's national. Oh, it is listed. Keynes Technology India. I don't know if it's the same company though, but Keynes is listed. Let me look at its year. It's been pretty static, 21% rise in year. Oh my God. In the last 5 years, it has grown like 5,000%. 5,500%. Oh, oh, holy. Yeah, Kane Semiconductor Private Limited, subsidiary. You're correct. You're right. So Keynes is already up, right? It's already up. Oh my God. 7,000, 5,000% rise in a stock in 5 years. 800 to 8,000. So, wow. 124 bucks to 7,000. Holy shit, man. So yeah, this is why I'm not a trader, right? I don't look at that. But yeah, that's something very interesting. Thank you, Mr. Kumar. But now that the stock is like 6,000% up, uh, even though it's 6,000% up, it's not. What's the market cap of Keynes? Keynes market cap. Let's discuss it for a second. In dollars, in USD. Keynes Technology India has a market cap of $5 billion. Five Keynes Technology market cap is approximately 1.2 USD. That's not a lot of money, man. 1.2 of one number says 5. I'll have to study this. This is very interesting. Thank you. What about RRP Semiconductors? Not sure if it's already discussed. No, it's not. Mr. Piyush Sethi says RRP Semiconductors. RRP Semiconductors share price. Well, it's already listed, but I don't know. It seems like a flat stock. No, this is not a stock that people can buy. The curve is like this. So it's basically not a properly listed company, right? It's something like Patanjali stock, Ruchi Soya and Kane, Cyan Agro. I don't think it involves. But yeah, it has also grown to, in 5 years, some 58,000%. 12,000% in the last year. 12,000% in the last year. 12,000%, folks. RRP Semiconductors. I'm not sure if it can be bought though, right? Because this graph signals no market activity. That's huge. It's basically a mark to market kind of a play. But this is huge. So never looked at these shares, to be honest, until now. But yeah, should look at it. Definitely, clearly. Moving on. I lost my train of thought. We were talking about something else. Speaking of semiconductors and the India place, so yeah, we were talking about the Indian economy. The RBI chief is bullish on the Indian economy, however, slightly concerned as far as the outlook for tariffs is considered. Speaking of tariffs, US and China are heating up, right? The situation is heating up. US trying to come to India and says it's China against the world. That's the statement. It's China against the world. Why? Because Chinese control on the rare earth magnets and allied materials is causing a lot of problems to US manufacturing, right? And because of that, US is struggling. US doesn't have chips, right? Not the semiconductor chips or the eating chips, the leverage chips, right? So they don't have anything. And they're talking about getting countries together to sort of push against China or push China to the wall. Now the problem is, there are two problems. The first problem is US also pushed India away for no reason. India didn't have anything to do with whatever was going on with US and China. India was a beneficiary of the trade war between US and China. However, US turned its guns towards India, and that caused a lot of problems to India. A lot of sectors, textile went 50% down. Shrimp, the marine supplies, they went down. Gem and jewelry exports 50% down. There's a lot of problems happening, right, in the country because of the tariffs. US trained its guns on India, and now it needs India and other countries to rally against China. So US clearly screwed up with India. And the second problem is that China is not easing on India either. The Great Wall of China throws shadow on Indian manufacturing. So now they've stopped supplying products that include rare earth magnets. So earlier, the blockade was basically on the rare earth magnets themselves, but now components which include rare earth magnets that have also gotten screwed up. So that is a level up towards attack as an attack on the Indian economy, Indian manufacturing. Nobody saw this coming. We had very high level talks. Mr. PM, Mr. Modi met Xi, President Xi, and they had pleasant discussions. And there were talks about India and China working together and so on and so forth. But all that turned out to be fugazi because India's new export curbs extending also to imports containing rare earth magnets is likely to worsen operational crisis. I think it will not be good for India if China replaces US as superpower, given that there are a lot of jobs created by US companies in India. Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Well, it's very bad news for India if China turns out to be a superpower, because China is a territorial adversary. I mean, it really wants to fight India. It wants to take Indian territory. It talks about Arunachal Pradesh as South Tibet. So China is an expansionist, power-hungry player, right? It looks at imperial empire, which has Indian territory. So it wants Ladakh, it wants Arunachal, and if China becomes a superpower, there'll be very little that India can do to defend itself. So it's a very, very problematic situation. But right now, whatever is happening in the financial markets is problematic. Speaking of problematic financial market, gold is up yet again. Silver retreated a bit, but gold is up. It rose $1,000, 1,31,000 rupees. Gold is showing no signs of slowing down, while everything looks very, very weird, right? So if you look at the US stock market, most of the froth, or let's say most of the growth that's coming in the US stock market is coming through a very select group of stocks, which are, the AI stocks, the tech stocks, heavy stocks. Other than that, US is basically nothing. The stock market is not growing at all. Chinese stock market is also starting to grow because of a lot of action in the AI play. So financial, and if you look at ChatGPT's earnings, OpenAI's earnings came out, some insights of their earnings, and they were just hilarious, folks. So you want to know what OpenAI's earnings look like? So 800 million users, 5% paying, 40 million paying subscribers, $13 billion in ARR, annual recurring revenue, $13 billion, right? So an average revenue per customer of $325 per year, right? $27 per month, that's okay. 70% from subscriptions revenue, rest is API. $8 billion in H1 and about a $20 billion loss rate. So they're spending like $3 to earn $1 in revenue. So they're doing a revenue of $13 billion and losing about $20 billion in a year. That's OpenAI. And they're just raising money and losing money, raising money and losing money. As of now, the only company which essentially made all the money with AI was Nvidia, right? The chip company. And the chip company, what it's doing, it's sharing its earnings with companies like OpenAI. It's investing in OpenAI so that it can make those losses and keep buying Nvidia GPUs. So it's a circular economy. Now, if you look at Nvidia, or if you look at semiconductor, that's also a very brittle industry. How is that a brittle industry? There's TSMC, which is just one company which basically makes chips, right? It's a Taiwan-based one company, very, very important. Then there's something called ASML, which makes special kind of lithographic machines, right? These lithographic, that's just one company, makes 90% of all the lithographic machines, the high precision machines used to make semiconductors. Then there's Carl Zeiss, which makes almost all, basically all, 90% of all the mirrors, high precision mirrors, which are used in the making of these semiconductor chips. So if you look at the fragility of that system, just one company, whatever happens in just one company, and everything gets screwed, right? And that's the brittle, fragile aspect of the whole semiconductor manufacturing play. The good part is that it's being supported by the tech companies of the world, which are like Microsoft, Google, Apple, and so on and so forth. Right now, these companies make a lot of money. So even if they lose a lot of money through AI or in AI, right? Uh, it doesn't matter because their earnings are strong. Amazon can invest like $8 billion in Anthropic, and $8 billion wouldn't even uh, you know cast a spell, or let's say it'll not even wrinkle its PNL. So that's the robust aspect of the whole AI economy. Other than that, it's pretty fragile. And if with its fragility comes the whole financial system's fragility, which is why gold is going up. Ray Dalio, sir, recently came out with his own gold thesis. He says gold, he likes it, debt, he doesn't like at all, and so on and so on. So, viewers of Thinkers Frequency, I'd remind you, I apologize for being pushy if I am, but we would need to grow. Right now, I see 8 people on YouTube and some 4 people on LinkedIn, right? That's not a lot of people. We need to grow. Mr. Sumant Kumar was very kind to write something on LinkedIn, but I could only see it after he had shared that piece with me on as a message. Mr. Raju Kumar had also written something. I don't get notified of mentions on LinkedIn. So if at all you write something on LinkedIn, tagging me, please share that with me because I don't get to know if you've written anything. So please share these thing, bring people, share it on WhatsApp status. Please don't forget, this needs to grow in order to be sustainable, because the kind of information we share, it's pretty high quality, right? And it takes a lot of research and time to read, which I do anyway. I like to read, I like to research, but still, if I'm doing this live, right, it should grow. So please do whatever you can. You must know it better. I'm not an expert in this, but yeah. Anyway, so that's what's going on. Hyundai has gotten the first Indian to lead its India's operations. So South Korean company Hyundai, even the Japanese Honda, they always used to have their country's people, like South Koreans and Japanese people, leading India operations. But here comes a change. Hyundai has actually hired an India guy as its India head. Now this shouldn't mean anything, but it does. But it does, because these countries are very, very particular about their leadership, right? Moving on. Despite everything that's going on in the automotive, the electronics, the smartphone play, the market for variable companies had dried down in India. The numbers don't look good. It'll be even more difficult for OpenAI given that Chinese AI companies are showing rapid progress, says Mr. Abhishek Sharma. You're right. You're absolutely right. Speaking of moving on from that, we were talking about how variables market is not growing at all. In fact, it's declining year on year. So it has shown a 6% decline. The smartwatch segment, the wearable thing, it's declining, right? And so these companies are trying to look at Western markets to to reduce their dependence on Indian markets, which are falling. Now, boat, uh, noise, and so on and so forth, these companies are expanding overseas to US, to Europe, to Middle East, and so on. Right now, it's less than 5% of their revenues that come from outside. Now they want to diversify, they want to make it higher, obviously, because Indian market is not growing. It's not about not growing, it's declining. 6 to 7% of yearly decline is no joke. Speaking of this joke or the lack of jokes, what do you think about Boat's IPO? Boat is going IPO, right? It's trying to go IPO. It's about to raise like 3,000 crores or something. It has a pretty huge IPO. What happens to their IPO? Is Boat's IPO a good bet? Not at all, folks. Not at all. Considering whatever is going on in their home market, which is basically 95% of their sales, a declining market, total sheer dependence on Amazon, Flipkart, and the likes of these platforms. No owned distribution. Retail not that strong, right? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. So boat will be a pretty dull IPO is what I'm assuming. I'll have to look at the numbers. What's the valuation that they're looking at? What's the revenue multiple? They showed a bit of profit. That's just IPO brushing up. So what you do before IPO is that you push some expenses right to the next fiscal year. You make some sort of arrangement. So you clean your balance sheet a little. It looks pretty. This is just a basic 101 financial engineering, right? You delay your expenses, you keep some of your profits, so you show a bit of profitability. And then what happens is after you've done that and your IPO is subscribed or whatever, then you show the loss, which is pretty standard stuff, which is what Boat has done. Otherwise, the company is not that green. And it'll especially be less green considering its entire market sort of becomes stale. Moving on. That's what's going on, folks. We won't discuss politics, of course, but Afghanistan and Pakistan are like waging a war against each other, which is like pretty solid stuff. Pretty solid stuff, whatever's going on in that market. Moving on. India, a close second to China with 25,000 crore Russian oil buys. Well, there's no surprise for anybody, I think. China is the number one player, then comes India, then comes Turkey, then comes EU, and then comes South Korea, right? These are the people who buy Russian oil, Russian exports. Second largest importer of Russian cold and refined fuels, right? Even as crude imports from Moscow fell 9% in September, close second to China, right? So some numbers if you're interested: $2.5 billion billion euros India refiners bought, right? China was 3.2, so pretty close. That's what's going on. Second largest buyer of Russian coal, fossil imports of 3.6 billion behind China's 5.5 billion euros, right? So that's what's going on. Trump administration has been trying to do whatever it's been trying to do. It's clearly not been working out, and it's only gonna get worse for those guys, right? Considering whatever's happening in the war, which is very crazy. Nayara Energy on UK's new Russian oil sanctions list. Things are not getting easier for Nayara, the Rosneft and Reliance company. Rosneft 49%, Reliance 51%. It's getting sanctioned from all sorts of places. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency, remember we talked about how Nayara was trying to share use dark fleets for its shipments. It was trying every trick in the book to just stay afloat because of the overwhelming sanction laid against it by EU, by America, and so on and so forth. Nothing is happening. Not getting easier. Nayara imported 100 million barrels of Russian crude worth $5 billion in 2024 alone. That's what's going on. So we've talked about that. In the meanwhile, China has complained against India in WTO over EV and battery subsidies. So obviously EV and battery, India has tried to protect its EV and battery manufacturing industry by laying some sort of duties, indirect tariffs, and so on and so forth, so that the local manufacturing could be spurred. China is going to WTO and asking for that to get reversed. It says it's unfair trade, right? That's protectionism, and WTO should step in. But nobody gives a shit about WTO anymore. Nobody gives a shit about UN. UN is basically a Mahababu Samuh, a Samuh of Mahababus, right? That is in English, a congregation of mega bureaucrats. So bureaucrats, which are the worst of the country, right? The most corrupt. All the bureaucrats of all the countries come together to form WHO, to form UN, to form WTO. Nobody gives a shit about these entities anymore. They have totally lost any respect. When India went to WTO about the steel tariffs, right? against US. So US laid tariffs on Indian steel, Indian aluminium. You remember, viewers of Thinkers Frequency remember 7 billion worth of Indian steel and aluminium going to US. US laid a lot of duties, 50%. Right? India went to WTO. US said it's national security. Go screw yourselves. Right? So WTO couldn't do anything about it. Nobody gives a shit about WTO. Why should anybody? Right? Do you care about WHO, WTO, UN? Does anybody? Do you think it has any value? These things have any value in this day and age? Right? I think it's basically League of Nations. Right? It's like League of Nations before the World Wars. Viewers who don't know, League of Nations was essentially United Nations, but then World Wars happened, so nobody gave a shit about that either. Right? So that's quick question. Why, when Reliance has its own petrol pumps, why are they going with Nayara as well? So Nayara is not a petrol pump play. Nayara is a big energy conglomerate which is a lot into refining and sending those refined oil to other places. So it's a refinery play. It's an petrol pump is called an OMC, Oil Marketing Company. Indian Oil, BPCL, HPCL, Reliance, Adan. That's an oil marketing company. There's like the final product sold to consumers. That's a petrol pump. That's an oil marketing company, right? Nayara is not an oil marketing company. It's a refiner. Refiners sell to oil marketing companies. I hope it gets clear. Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Moving on. India likely to see 4.4 rise in new job creations in H2. Mr. Abhishek Sharma says they also have petrol pumps. You mean Nayara? Well, they could be in the oil marketing play as well with Reliance or whatever. However, Nayara, the Rosneft and Reliance, that's a majorly a refinery, an international operation. It's not a domestic, oil marketing operation like Indian Oil or BPCL or HPCL and so on and so forth. So let me read about it. Nayara petrol pumps, right? So Nayara has 6,500 petrol pumps, Nayara Energy, across length and breadth of the country, as compared to IOCL. IOCL has like 40,000 petrol pumps, right? So 1,200 petrol pump in various states, 6,000 branded petrol pump, refinery and oil marketing. So oil refinery in India and leading petroleum marketing company. So you're right. So they are also into oil marketing play, but they're essentially, so Nayara Energy to expand a retail network, adding a fuel station. Plans to add 400 petrol pumps this year. It adding to its network of 6.5. But that's not the total, it's just a very, very tiny operation compared to the whole bid of refinery operations that the company runs, right? Moving on. But you're right, it also has petrol pumps, which until now I did not know. So thank you so much for that. Moving on. India is creating 4.4% of job growth, but at the same time, the recent job survey said the unemployment ratio hit 5.2%, which is high. But those are monthly things. Those are like 7-day surveys based on people who want jobs, right? So if you look at the market, how do they come up with these surveys? Is that whoever is looking at a job, right, 15-year-old to plus, if they are looking at a job and they couldn't find a days of employment, that's unemployment, right? So you need to have 1 day of employment to qualify for that month's, right, wage. And some content creators on the internet said this is a scam. This is, this is misleading, that just 1 day of employment is marking people as employed, right? Just 1 day of wage, if that is marking people as employed, it's a scam. Well, it's not a scam. You know why? Because if not 1 day, what will you mark it as? Will 2 days work? Will 3 days work? Will 4 days work? Will 30 days work? Right? What if a person doesn't want to work for 30 days? A daily wage worker, he is just looking at 3 days. So the basic standard is to have one day, and that person essentially comes. It's like a binary thing, right? If you could not find even one day of work, then you're unemployed. If you were out in the market looking for a job and you could find one day's work, right, you're employed. So you'll be marked as employed, and that's why these surveys happen so regularly. And in this particular survey for this last month, the unemployment number went up by 5.2%, to 5.2%, right? But that's not a big thing. We've talked about Hyundai's 5 billion. Etihad plans to fly more tourists to India, ramp up cargo ops. Well, if you remember, viewers of Thinkers Frequency, you would remember there's a cap on the seats that Etihad can take, from India to abroad, because there's a seat sharing agreement between foreign airlines and so on and so forth, right? Etihad was trying to get that quota revised because that quota was written in 2014, and in the last 11 years a lot of things have changed for Indian Airlines, right? So a lot of traffic that has gone up, so they were hoping that things change. While things have changed, the government has not improved the quota, so they are not getting more seats to sell from India, right? So what they're doing is they're talking about bringing people to India, right? You adjust to regulations, you adjust to the rules. So they tried to cajole the government into changing the rule, right? Evolving. But when that didn't happen, they're talking about cargo operations and flying more tourists into the country, because a lot of people are coming to India as well, from US, from every place. Moving on, Mr. Tushar Tiwari has a question. Stupid question. Saturday and Sunday are off in the office. If one wants to work and cannot get work, will that be marked unemployed? So these are factory workers that we are talking about, Mr. Tiwari. These are so if you go to New Delhi, right? If you go to New Delhi, there are a lot of daily wage workers who are out there, and you could hire a wage worker for whatever, for carrying stuff, for something of that sort. So that is a mandi kind of a market of wage workers, right? So construction workers and so on and so forth. So they're not talking about this organized full time, that is obviously one part of it, but a lot of construction kind of work, or daily wage work happens per day. So you can literally go to Delhi, old Delhi, and there is a place where a lot of people dressed in their uniform, they are available for hire on work basis, right? So if you get hired, they get hired from the play. That's how this particular thing is evolved, right? So it's not a Saturday Sunday thing, although I do think it doesn't, that Monday closes on Sunday, I don't know, but it's a pretty construction kind of a play, not the usual office work, so to speak, right? Moving on. Under the scanner, yet generic cough syrups hit shelves. So a lot of people are concerned about the Indian generic cough syrups killing people. 20 innocent kids unfortunately died because of these DEG polluted cough syrups, diethylene glycol. I wrote a huge article on it. It was to do with this corruption thing, and it was a lot how China dealt with this. We've talked about this, so I won't repeat myself. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency know. But these drugs are under scanner. However, these companies are still being able to sell, because a lot of these tracking agencies, they don't count these small businesses, right? So these drugs are still getting sold somehow, anyhow, because sometimes in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 places, chemists sell them, right? People don't go to doctors, people just go to the chemist and ask for med. Chemist gives these cough syrup. Sometimes small doctors, they are incentivized to prescribe these cough syrups and so on and so forth. So that's pretty huge. Total sales 3,500 crores. Fragmented market makes it difficult to correctly quantify sales of such cough syrups, which is very, very sad, right? Very sad. The regulatory environment for these things is pretty weird, to say the least. Moving on. Housing market, we talked about steady resurgence, right? Reshuffling of city. Chennai emerging as a top performing city, followed by Noida, Greater Noida, Kolkata. Well, we've talked a lot about that. Moving on. We've talked about RBI's reading of the situation. Growth has many sparks, tariff can dim glow. We've talked about Schroders CEO, the fund which is waiting for Indian markets to sort of settle. Rupee's steepest rise in 4 months said to come on RBI's dollar sales. I told you this would happen. If you remember, we talked about how rupee was falling and then RBI was intervening. And a lot of ways RBI intervenes is like currency swaps, rupee buying, dollar selling, and so on and so forth. So rupee has risen in the to 88 point some, from 89 to 88.007, right? It's risen because of the RBI intervention, where it essentially sold dollars and bought rupee. It's basically demand and supply. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency, I would remind you, unfortunately, incessantly, to try and bring as many people as you can. We need to grow, right? Do whatever you can. If you're writing, mention me. Message me, because I won't get your writings. Write on LinkedIn, write on Substack, do whatever you can. Moving on. Torrent is raising 14,000 crore debt for JB deal. Well, that's okay. Right? Torrent Pharmaceutical buying JB Pharmaceuticals, chemicals. We've talked about this. Moving on. Singapore court okays Wazir X parents plan for return of frozen assets. So if you remember, Wazir X had a big scandal, right? And its assets got frozen. Singapore court has basically given them a go ahead for their plan. Speaking of crypto and Wazir X, Coin DCX is getting some money from Coinbase. Coin DCX also had a $44 million breach where crypto got stolen. So they're still getting some money from Coinbase, which is weird, but it's happening. A lot of this crypto market is just plain, it's just weird stuff. Speaking of crypto, it's still not as cool as before, right? It's fallen a bit, 13% and then 6%. So let's see what happens with the crypto prices. Everybody thought crypto was a hedge against markets volatility. It's not. It's not, folks. Whatever people said about crypto, it's gonna happen. It's not happened. So crypto, is it a currency? It's not a currency, right? Because currency cannot be this volatile. So it's definitely not a currency. It's obviously has a lot of energy requirements as well. So it's not an efficient means of transportation of money or transport of value. Is it a store of value, right? If it's a store of value, is it a hedge against dollar? It's clearly not a hedge against dollar, because when the market falls, crypto falls, right? So it's not a hedge against dollar. Is it like gold? A lot of people said Bitcoin was like digital gold, right? It's not, because digital gold is acting very differently, has always acted very differently. It's supposed to be a static, very stable kind of an enterprise. Can it lead to more international transactions? Well, that can happen definitely through stable coins and whatnot, right? Ease of transactions of crypto can happen, but that comes with a caveat, right? Most of that is unregulatory, moves in an unregulatory way, which leads it to dark transactions, weapon transactions, drug transactions, illegal human trafficking transactions, and so on and so forth, right? So whatever crypto guys said that the platform, or let's say the thing would do, it hasn't done, right? Especially now. Now was the time for the crypto market to prove that however volatile the fiat world becomes, crypto could be a hedge against it. But no, it's not. It's not. Speaking of what's funny, taking on a new role, streamers are now exhibiting on bigger screens. So Amazon is launching its movies on theaters, which is very good. Very good news. Mr. Anurag Kashyap's movie, it's called Nishanchi. It's getting a theatrical release a sort of a limited theatrical release. Now that's one of the strategies. Amazon has a lot of money, so Netflix, Amazon, these people can release movies. Now these people, while writing this report, they said it's a trend in US that these companies are also launching their streaming products to theatrical markets, and they quoted Irishman as an example that they also had a theatrical release. Well, these people clearly don't know much about cinema. The reason Irishman released on theaters was not because Irishman or Netflix decided to sort of release it in theaters as a strategy. The reason why Irishman was released in theaters in US was because the Academy of Motion Pictures and Sciences, it requires a movie to get released in theaters in order to get nominated for the award, the Academy Awards, the Oscars, right? That's the reason why Irishman was released in theaters. And these people had no idea, and they wrote, "No, that's a trend." Even in US, people are launching their movies in theaters, even though they are a streaming production. That's not the case. But in any case, Super Boys of Malegaon was an Amazon production. It was released in theaters. I went to watch it in theaters. Good movie. So it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing. It's a much needed pivot for the streaming guys, or sorry, the theater guys, right? To display streamers. Although I don't know how much of it's gonna lead to anything. It's basically eating your own, eating yourself, right? Movies, when they signed the deal with OTT companies, they basically killed themselves. They signed the deal with the devil, right? Moving on. LVMH spurs an $80 billion luxury rally as China outlook brightens. So, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how China was looking at spearheading domestic consumption, right? So China has like 30 to 40% of its economy as domestic consumption, as compared to India's 60%, America's 70%, right? So most of Indian economy and US economy is domestic consumption driven. Not so much for China. China is more export driven economy. But now China is changing that. China wants to be a consumption led economy as well. So that is somehow, I mean, maybe it's working, right? Because LVMH, Chinese outlook brightened, and it's had like an $80 billion rally in value, which is huge. When they said software is gonna eat the world, they should have said, except handbags. Handbags will be safe. Because if you look at the money these handbag companies make, and the number of handbags people buy, I mean women buy, it's just unfathomable. It's unbelievable. Like, the amount of handbags women have, it's just crazy. It's unbelievable. And the amount of money these people make. So all handbag makers make money. Have you realized that? So people who import Chinese handbags, they make money. The luxury handbags, they make money. The jute handbag guys, the handicraft guys, they make money. Everybody who is in the handbag business makes money, right? So software will eat the world, but not handbags. Handbags are safe. Moving on. Salesforce sees key. India as a key market, bets big on AI expansion. That's okay. That's okay. French luxe retailer Galeries Lafayette set for India entry with Aditya Birla Group. So a lot of luxury play happening. Moving on. Goods exports up 6.7%, but trade gap still got weakened. Why? Because imports rose 16.7%. So that's a drag on the economy. Exports grew 6.7%. Imports grew 16% in September. Trade gap, got worse. That's the news. Most of the imports which grew were because of the gold and silver prices and so on and so forth. So that shouldn't surprise anybody, right? IMF's growth revision reflects India's strong fundamentals, says Mr. Piyush Goyal. So Mr. Piyush Goyal is pretty solid. Speaking of what's solid, there's a lot of investment happening in Indian railways, right? We talked about this. Vande Bharat 4.0 to be ready in 18 months, says Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav. He says railways are gonna kill it, and these trains are gonna be so advanced and so beautiful that the world will look at adopting this particular play. That's what Mr. Vaishnav says. Trains have gotten better, but my experience has been pretty dirty, right? I traveled through trains recently. I didn't like it, but I didn't go to Vande Bharat. Maybe that's different. So anyway, moving on. 3,700 crores released to states under PM FME Yojana, says Madam Nirmala Sitharaman. A credit guarantee may get doubled for fee reduced for well-run SMEs. So 200 crores, that's the credit guarantee. It's looking at getting doubled, and a lot of ease of credit financing for well-run MSMEs. Why do you think it's happening? To spur private capex, right? So that MSMEs can take loans and invest in private capex. So that's gonna be huge. That's very nice. Moving on. Fruit inflation is high. Food inflation very low. We talked about WPI. We talked about CPI. We talked about inflation being very, very low. We talked about food inflation being very, very low because of vegetables. But fruits, not so much. So while vegetables prices declined 16%, fruit prices grew 6% in some cases, right? So these are just things that you ought to know, because these bits of information might connect someplace else. So it's not much of an important information that fruit inflation is high, right? 5-year high, weather demand. But you realize a lot of things, that these things might just play out in different places in different ways, right? Moving on. SEBI chief is warning of quantum apocalypse. He says Y2K was a predictable thing. Y2K, if you don't know, Y2K was a bug in the software play when the world was shifting to the next millennium, 2000. The software had some problems and people predicted that the whole thing will crash at midnight when everything changes from 1999 to 2000, because they expected that the software thing was gonna crash, right? It wouldn't be able to take the change because of the but nothing happened, right? Because the bug could be solved, so everything was cool, right? That was Y2K, a pretty popular phenomena. SEBI chief says that quantum apocalypse could ruin a lot of things because it could kill the encryption, right? And it could be deployed today, harvested later. So that's a very big security risk, SEBI chief says. And with if that doesn't get solved, it's gonna be a bit of an issue, right? Says Mr. SEBI chief. Just 1 second, folks. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. Just 1 second, folks. Just 1 second. Sorry about that, folks. So yeah, what we were talking about was the Y2K and the encryption play, right? SEBI chief says that the encryption could be broken, and a lot of people are using this in a very interesting way, that they're just gonna deploy this and harvest later, right? A lot of by the way, you heard it. I thought I had muted everything. God damn it. So it wasn't muted at all? Holy shit. Holy shit. Anyway, so that's very funny. Moving on. Scaling Indian chip startups tap Taiwan, South Korean foundries. Well, that's very, very necessary, right? We've talked about Ixigo stake selling by Elevation and Peak Process taking it over. That's very nice. That counts as a foreign vote of confidence in Indian equities. This is very, very nice, right? Uh, Indian and global IT majors invest $1.5 billion in Oracle's AI data platform. So this is yet again a move in that direction we were talking about. Indian IT looking at evolving its business model, the core business model, right? Moving on, we've already talked about uh, Israel and Hamas problems, right? Also, the rare earth curbs. We'll discuss with India others to prepare response, says Mr. Scott Bessent. Well, they'll have to change. How probable do you think is that America and China's situation worsens and US changes its stance on Indian tariffs? What do you think? How probable do you think is India getting a favorable tariff situation? Right? What do you think? Is that very probable? Now, given in that context, you also need to take this information that Trump is firing, on BRICS again. It says BRICS is an attack on dollar, and everybody is very worried about dollar. Most, high chances US will have to change stance, says Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Well, okay. What do you think, other people? How probable do you think is US uh, change of stance on Indian tariffs, considering everything that's going to happen between US and China? Because China is not looking at slowing down. China is pretty much in a confrontational mode with everybody. They don't care. They hold all the chips. What do you think US is going to do? Right? At this moment, US is really scared about de-dollarization, dollar being very, very fragile, US at a risk of depression, some systemic risks cropping up here and there. Nobody knows what's happening with the economy, right? That's what's going on. So yesterday I was just talking to an investor, this is very interesting. So I was talking to an investor, and he said that, hey, we cannot invest in an Indian company. We are an Indian company, of course, because let's see what happens. So a rupee depreciates every year by 3 to 4%, right? So if you look at 5 years, it's gonna be depreciated by what, 25 to 30%. So that is a clear depreciation of 30% of rupee against dollar. Now, even if your company returns 5x money, right, the depreciation of rupee will essentially kill 30% of whatever the gain is, right? And then when I'm trying to take the money out, I'll have to pay 20% tax, well, while withdrawing it. So it doesn't make sense to invest in Indian company for an overseas investor. That's what he said. To which I replied, sir, what do you know about rupee and dollars, right? Who knows anything about these things? Is dollars rise permanent? Is rupees fall permanent? Is dollars strength, right, permanent? Everybody's talking about de-dollarization. According to Mr. Ray Dalio's analysis, dollar should have, US should have been in depression already, right? And the global economy is in tantrums. If we are looking at stability of returns, right, without any worries, everybody should be investing in gold, which they are doing already, right? So, and when you're investing in startups, you're not looking at a 3x or a 5x return. Maybe you're looking at a 100x or 500x returns, because that's the play, right? You wouldn't want to be a small company which returns 5x, right? Especially at a seed stage. So that was my answer. And there is no. So to which his response was that it's very cool, that's a strong pitch. Pitching is cool, but it's not your fault that you are in a country which is sinking. That's literally what I heard from a very, very renowned investor, right? Can you believe this, folks? What do you think about that? How do you feel? To which I said, sir, I'll just say that I'm more optimistic about my country in that case, right? So that's what happened, folks. Just yesterday. Can you believe it? Indian PMFs are promoting US stock investments nowadays. Well, yeah, that's happening, says Mr. Sumant Kumar. Trump is unpredictable, says Mr. Sumant Kumar. So, with that, Stellantis is investing $13 billion in US. Stellantis is, of course, the automotive company. NV invest 13 billion. Jeep SUVs, Ram trucks. So whoever said tariffs are not gonna make companies make in US, they were wrong. Obviously, they were totally wrong. Trump was right. Not just Stellantis, not just automotive companies. Pharma companies have pledged $25 billion to make in US. Automotive companies are one. In electronics, Apple is beginning its manufacturing of some special glass in US, and a lot of play. So tariff worked. It's just that Trump is a bit late, in fixing these problems. And whatever he's doing is fix. It's a good fix, right? Companies making in US is obviously great news for America, but it's just happening too late. They sold their country for too long. The McKinsey types, when they handed all the manufacturing to China, when they led this offshoring revolution, they sold themselves out for far too long, unabated. Right? So whatever US is trying to do, it's very difficult for things to pan out. And with that, folks, we will come to the end of the 143rd episode of Thinker's Frequency. Our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. It's 9:15. We should punch in anytime soon. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. And I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. I will thank Mr. Abhishek Sharma, Mr. Sumant Kumar, Mr. Piyush Sethi, Mr. Tushar Tiwari, Mr. Ashutosh Bhandekar, and everybody else, right? Mr. Abhishek Sharma says, thank you for your time. Have a great day. I'm sure you will get a better investor. Well, thank you so much. All the luck is most needed, right? But that was just a sentiment I shared. Speaking of sentiment sharing, I need to share it with you folks. Sorry for repeating myself. You will have to help me grow this thing. This will need to grow to be sustainable, right? 15 people every day is not gonna work. When Mr. Sumant Kumar, by the way, wrote something day before yesterday, it really worked, It worked on LinkedIn a lot, like 1,500 views on LinkedIn video. Just basis, or otherwise it just gets 300, 400 views. That particular, the next episode got 1,500 views, right? And maybe we got a lot of new viewers. So you will have to do something, to grow this. Do whatever you can, share it on WhatsApp, write on LinkedIn, write on Substack. If you are tagging me, please message me so I can repost your thing, and we'll support it together. But please help me grow, help this grow, Thinker's Frequency thing. And hope to see you tomorrow. Take care. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.